2 weeks ago at the time of recording, I spent 5 days with world-leading psychologists and I left with about 40 pages of notes, 1,000 different thoughts, a pounding headache every single day. And it's taken me a couple of weeks to actually sit and reflect and digest it all. But these are 5 things that I kept hearing over and over again that will completely change the way that you think about emotional eating, about weight loss, and about your relationship with exercise. The first point is that emotional eating always has a purpose. Now, in a workshop delivered by Dr. Jennifer Patterson, who's the author of Act for Behavioural Addictions, she explained how any type of behavioural addictions, such as overeating or binge eating or abusing food as a substance, always emerge because in a situation in which we use them, they become helpful. So what this means is that these patterns emerge because they genuinely solve a real problem, which could be soothing or avoidance or numbing or getting rid of pain or pushing it down or pushing it away. And the reason why the behavior is then repeated is because it worked so well in one instance that it essentially, it's like our brains learn that that was really good that time. When you felt like shit, eating made you feel so much better. It's almost like it no longer becomes, so to speak, like contextually sensitive, and it expands to absolutely any situation. So say, for example, you learned when you were younger that eating chocolate when people are arguing made you feel better. Your brain learns that when you don't feel good, eating chocolate makes you feel better. It's not so much about people arguing. It extends to any situation in which you don't feel good, which means that it then reinforces itself over time, making it incredibly difficult to break that cycle, and yet making it so compellingly understanding that one would find themselves tangled up in that cycle still. Now, this wasn't new information to me, but seeing her and hearing her frame it in such a clear and concise way felt so unbelievably validating, because it reassured me that what I'm doing with my clients is working. I mean, it reassured me that it's the right thing to do, and it explained to me why it's working so effectively, because the evidence base shows us that all behavior makes sense in context and that it's functional, and that understanding the function of that behavior, in this case emotional eating, is the first and most important fundamental step that we need to take in order to be able to then break that habit and create alternatives, not get rid of it, but create alternative ways of coping with those things that don't involve the repetition and the reinforcement of the unhelpful behavior, which in this case would be eating excessive amounts of food. And in many ways it felt so validating, because I have been saying for ages that, unlike other coaches believe, struggling with overeating is not a matter of willpower and discipline. Genuinely, overeating serves a very helpful function, and unless that function is appropriately addressed, no amount of calorie tracking and macro plans or any of that kind of bullshit is actually going to help somebody actually, focus on doing the things that they need to do if they want to be able to lose weight. Because if they keep using food as a means to cope, unless they learn other ways of coping, they're going to be using food over and over again. It's why so many people lose weight and gain it again and get stuck in this loop thinking that it's their fault. And what I want you to remember from that session is that, number one, you're not stupid or faulty for finding yourself overeating to cope, and number two, you need to be able to address the reason why you're using food to cope, to be able to come up with the alternatives if you want to stop using food as a coping mechanism, which I know kind of sounds obvious, but that's super important. And literally that's what I do for a living every single day, and it's what I've been doing for a living for the last 5 years. The second point that I took away is that if emotional eating has a purpose, then that purpose is to protect you from shame. In an absolutely incredible workshop delivered by Dr. Jenna Lejeune and Dr. Sarah Pegram, they described and demonstrated beautifully, in fact, how shame is at the core of self-criticism, body hatred, and all of these things that we do to try and change the way that we look in an effort to get rid of shame, essentially. And the main thing that I took away from that session was just that penny dropping realization that self-criticism is a way to protect from shame. Now, I feel like I kind of knew that, but to hear it so black and white, and to recognize that shame is so painful that our minds would prefer for us to engage in sort of cognitive type of, self-criticism and chatter, because that, even though it is painful and it's really difficult, that is it's less painful than actually sitting and experiencing that awful, horrible feeling of shame that comes up, that fear that comes up with shame, the fear of abandonment, of not being good enough, of being ostracized, of all of these things. And why do I feel it's important to tell you this? Well, I want you to know that I understand and I get it. I know that shame is probably at the core of why you keep emotional eating, of why you keep wanting to lose weight, of why you have such a terrible relationship with food and with exercise and with your body and with yourself. And I understand it, and I also know how to change it. And what I learned in that workshop is, again, another confirmation of what I've been doing for years, that when we experience so much shame, and when shame is such a profound part of our lived experience and such a key part of why we struggle so much with things like emotional eating and weight loss and all this stuff, is that talking about it, it's not enough. In sessions, we need to be able to actually experience that shame that we're working so hard to try to avoid with all of these crazy backflip strategies. And what that means is that when working together, when I'm working with clients, we need to go back and reprocess some of these shame memories. And that's why I use so many guided breathing exercises in sessions. That's why we do so much meditation together, because that allows me to take you back, reprocess those memories so that you can learn to cope with that shame, so that you don't have to continue to avoid it by overeating, by criticizing yourself, and by hating yourself or trying to change yourself as a result of all of that self-hatred and all that shame. Genuinely, that's probably one of my favorite parts of being able to be a psychologist and a coach, because I know that the changes that I'll help you make in your life go far beyond the surface level. My third takeaway comes from a session on nihilism delivered by Dr. Grant Dewar. This session was awesome. I like philosophy, I like talking about existentialism, and I like talking about the meaning of life. So nihilism specifically refers to this philosophical way of thinking, or I guess like philosophical alignment, that reckons that life is meaningless, that there's no point to living life. If you've heard of The Myth of Sisyphus and the book that was written by Albert Camus or like Jean-Paul Sartre, they were both nihilistic philosophers who spoke about the meaning of life and life actually having no inherent meaning. Now, I see this a lot in my practice with clients who maybe find that there's no purpose and no point to going to the gym consistently or eating in a particular way that's going to be health promoting if they don't think that the reward is going to be immediate, or if they don't have a goal that they're working towards. They don't see the point in doing the things that matter to them, or at the same time, if they ever fuck up, they feel like it's pointless to keep going. Like if they eat a biscuit, they feel like it's pointless to carry on with their healthy, nutritious meal plan for that day because they feel like they've ruined it. So they're much more likely to press the fuck it button. And so going to this session really highlighted to me that one of the most important things that we can do to circumvent that nihilistic type of thinking, which obviously gets in the way of us doing the things that are important to us, i.e. like live a healthy and fit life, because if we don't see the point to it, then why would we continue to do it, right? So the way to work with this is to identify our values, which I talk about all of the time. And it was just, again, such a comfort to be able to see that framed in front of me and go, oh my gosh, like, of course, like I know that this is why I do this, but again, this is why it's so important, because when we identify our values and when we know what we care about and why we're doing the things that we're doing, and we create the meaning and we give life meaning, and we give the activities that we're doing meaning based on the things that are important to us, it makes it far more worthwhile. It makes it far less likely that we'll press the fucking button, that will stop start, because it matters to us essentially. And if you want to identify your values, I've got a brilliant value sort resource that you can just find in the link in the description. I use it all the time. These are the exact steps that I follow with my clients to help them identify what values are important to them, but also to help them set value-based goals. It's one of my most favorite tools. I do this literally at the beginning of every single piece of work that I do with any client at all. And I just love that session. It was just such a refreshing reminder that linked to the other two, emotional eating makes sense in context. It's there to cope with shame. And in the moments that we want to press the fuck it button and that we feel like everything is pointless, actually connecting with our values is a way to stop ourselves from going down that cycle and repeating that self-sabotage loop over and over. The fourth point that I took away came from a brilliant workshop that I attended by honestly like two of the goats within the acceptance and commitment therapy community. So Dr. Robin Molser and Ulrike Kjellgaard, I think that's how you pronounce her name. It was absolutely incredible. And I felt so privileged to be in that room. Like, these two people are people that I've looked up to for such a long time in my career. In their session, towards the end of it, they did a really long breathing exercise that genuinely had me like, tears streaming down my eyes, because the topic of the session was on the steps that we need to take to recognize the cost of repeating the behaviors that are currently costing us or pulling us away from our values. So given the fact that values are so important, of course we all can recognize that our values matter, but yet we're human and we often find ourselves doing things that pull us away from those values and that end up narrowing our life. And so in this particular session, they focused explicitly on bringing that awareness of the cost and the pain and the distress and the desperation that can come from observing ourselves repeating these same unhelpful patterns in our life over and over that are pulling us further and further away from living the life that we want to live, from being the type of person that we want to be. And it was just such an important, I think, like reminder that until we understand the real cost and framing the cost through the lens of our values, it can be really difficult to want to change, because again, when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to emotional eating, when it comes to maybe wanting to do more exercise, changing any part of that relationship, like that is hard. You know, changing our relationship with food to stop emotionally eating, it's really difficult because food is a huge comfort. It's maybe something that we've done for a really long time. It means that we have to let go of old patterns, develop new ones. That's difficult. Focusing on intentional weight loss because it's going to improve our health and our quality of life and all these other aspects of our life, that's really hard. That requires us to do things that are incredibly effortful. You know, initiating more with exercise, that involves, you know, going into environments that maybe feel really uncomfortable, that bring up a lot of shame, that maybe involve us having experienced trauma and, you know, re-experiencing some of those memories. This session was a reminder that unless we understand the cost of what not doing those things is bringing into our life, and observing how it's pulling us further and further away from living the life that we want to be, from being the type of person that we want to be, until we really understand that, and not just understand that up here, but like really feel it. Making changes is very, very difficult. And that's why in sessions, it's so important to experience these things. So similar to what I said earlier, it's not just about talking about it. We have to go there, we have to feel it. And again, it was a confirmation for me of the way that I've been working. I felt very validating actually to go, no, I know that it's horrible. I don't like it when I have to take clients back to painful memories and sit in that discomfort with them and be in that together. But it's so valuable, and it's really that thing that can get us to start creating a bit of that behavior change. And if you're watching this specifically, I want you to maybe just take a moment, pause this video and think about, what is it costing you to stay the same? What is it costing you to not make the changes that you keep telling yourself that you want to make? And if you need a bit more help with, you know, thinking about this, you can again go back and do the value sort. It'll give you a sense of like what's most important to you, and it'll give you a sense of, you know, am I moving towards those things or am I moving away, and how are these unhelpful habits keeping me stuck and keeping me from actually doing the things that are most important to me, and actually, you know, sitting with that discomfort, recognizing it and using that as a mechanism of change, not because you hate yourself for it, but because you really care so much about living the best life possible, that's then going to instigate you to go and do what matters the most. And the final session that left the biggest impact on me was a session by Peter Fonagy, Dr. Peter Fonagy. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. This session, it gave me chills. He got a standing ovation for it because he spoke about the importance of trust. Now, the trust specifically in the therapeutic relationship, and how important it is to be able to create a trusting space with clients and be somebody that clients feel is trustworthy. And I can't explain what it was like to be in that session, but to hear him talk and explain the relationship between trust and trauma, and the power that we can have as psychologists in supporting clients and overcoming their difficulties by creating that trusting relationship. As I think about it, like it's giving me chills, because I talk all the time about how important it is to develop a trusting and loving relationship with my clients, the unconditional compassion that I have for them. One of my most important values, professionally speaking, is to have that trusting relationship with my clients, that my clients know that they can trust me, and that I'm transmitting a sense of care to my clients. In fact, I'll say this to anybody who comes on a consultation call with me. I'll say, you know, if you come away from this call and if you think that you're not going to feel comfortable with me, that's okay. I'm not going to take offense to that, because it is so important to me that my clients feel like they're going to be able to open up to me, because we're doing hard work. Like I said, we're going back, we're revisiting shame memories, where we're sitting with the distress of how much repeating old patterns is costing them. Like, it's difficult stuff, right? Like overcoming fears of food, overcoming binge eating, emotional eating, moving towards weight loss when you failed your entire life, like going to the gym for the first time and staying active when you keep failing, when you were made fun of in PE. It's so hard. And that session on trust just really brought it back to me of like, why I do what I do, not to be super cheesy, but genuinely like why I do what I do, both in my capacity as a coach and psychologist and as a psychologist, and why I place so much emphasis on that relationship. So if nothing else, what I want you to take away from that point is that if you're working with a coach, or if you're looking to work with a coach or with a psychologist, allow yourself to, you know, to let your spidey senses lead, right? Like lean into that felt sense within you and really consider, like, do I trust this person? If you follow somebody on social media, they might be like super inspiring sometimes, but they might say something that really jars you, that makes you feel really shit. Lean into that, listen to that, because it's such important information, and the power of it, my gosh, it's everything. The relationship and the trust that you build with someone, or with a professional who you're, you know, seeking help from, is fundamentally at the core of what's going to help you change. And I don't take that lightly, and it's really important to me. And again, to be in that session and hear him talk about this, it was incredible. It was incredibly moving. There were so many other workshops and sessions that I attended that I could talk on and on about, but I'm not going to rattle your brain too much. These are the 5 biggest takeaways for me. If there are any that you'd like me to expand on a little bit more, do let me know in the comments. There are some free resources in the description if you go through and look for them that essentially will help you develop some of the skills that I've been talking about in this video completely for free. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one.